We have a problem when it comes to adolescence, and that problem is us. Dr. Lawrence Steinberg points this out in his book, Age of Opportunity. He states, adolescence is a confusing time, but it's not the people in the midst of it who are confused. Indeed, adults are far more bewildered by adolescence than our young people themselves. This really sums it up. We struggle to understand adolescents and what they need to be healthy. It seems like such a complicated time of life. Many of our strategies and solutions just don't work well, and teens often feel like a hard group to work with. For example, when I ask people to write whatever comes into their head when I say the word adolescent, I routinely get answers like bad attitude, all-knowing, risky, rebellious, disrespectful, impulsive, dramatic, untrustworthy. I hear that despite all we do, they just don't show up. They're so wrapped up with their friends that they don't listen. They're so self-focused, incomprehensible. Well, my name is Kristen Teipel. As the director of the State Adolescent Health Resource Center at the University of Minnesota, I hear this frustration routinely in the trainings I do across the country. And it hasn't changed in the 20-some-odd years I've worked as a public health nurse with young people and the adults who care about them. It's a core problem that gets in the way of our helping young people to be healthy. The nice thing is, there is a solution. And that's that we need to shift how we think about and view young people, to see them through a developmental lens. That means we need to step in their shoes and walk around a while, to see the world through their experiences and perspectives. This was brought home to me a few years ago. My daughter, Maddie, was having routine challenges transitioning into high school as a freshman. I, of course, as the wise counselor, was giving my sage advice. Her response, eye rolls and obvious frustration, at which point she spun around and said to me, you're missing the point. If you could just walk around as me at school, then you'd see what this was really all about. And it hit me. She was right. I was trying to solve the wrong problem. When I stepped back and walked in her shoes, saw the school experience through her eyes, through all the developmental changes that she was adapting to, I got what she was really struggling with and what she needed to deal with it all. This time of adolescence is some of the most significant developmental changes in all of life. As young people live through these changes, they're busy reacting and adapting to them. They need to see and understand all of it because it shapes what they need to thrive and succeed. Let's go back. We need to see and understand all of this because it shapes what young people need to thrive and succeed. Understanding this development and what it takes for them to adapt requires us to always use a developmental lens in everything we do. Well, you might be asking, what do you mean, take a developmental lens? Well, we do know how to do this. We routinely do it with little children. Remember that time of life with the most amount of developmental change? We think about them developmentally all the time. We safety-proof our house. We talk and read to them constantly to support their language. We assess them with well baby clinic visits and chronicle their changes in baby books. And we adapt. As they grow into toddlers, we adapt our approach to help them gain independence. It's a routine for us. And think about temper tantrums. This is a perfect example of using a developmental lens. On the surface, a 2-year-old having a tantrum looks like a child who's naughty and misbehaving. With that perspective, my response should be, get angry, yell, tell her to stop. But it's not effective. When I see the tantrum through her eyes, it's a mismatch between what she's experiencing and her skills to manage it. So she might be frustrated in having to share a toy, but doesn't have the language to tell me this. So I get down to her level, to her eye level, let her know that I hear her frustration and give her words to tell me how she feels. Or I just distract her. Or she's hungry and tired but can't manage this, so I give her food and put her down for a nap. The result is I address the true issues that underlie the tantrum, which is more likely to help her calm down and find equilibrium. The problem is we don't routinely continue this developmental approach when young people enter into adolescence. It's important that we make the shift and build this into everything we do because adolescence is also a critical developmental time, just like early childhood. Now at this point, some of you may be objecting, well, it's not all about development. What about the impact of social determinants on health? Our young people are living in chronic and toxic poverty and stress, in families and communities that we've neglected to support, affected by structural racism and inequities, overwhelmed and disconnected from school, involved in the justice system, or alone on the streets. Social determinants are critical factors that negatively affect health, no doubt. But underlying all of this is development. All young people are going through it, and that complicates this even further. So consider the developing brain, both in early childhood and adolescence. Their young people's brain is chemically predisposed to be molded and modified by experience. That's how they learn. That's how they make all these changes. Because their brains are malleable, it can be influenced both positively and negatively in potentially permanent ways by a wider range of experiences than the mature adult brain. So looking at social determinants through this developmental lens, it's clear how even more toxic these social factors are at this sensitive time of life development. And it pushes us to shift our focus from fixing the kid that currently kind of drives much of what public health does, to changing the world within which young people live so that we can provide those rich, developmentally nurturing experiences young people need to thrive. So the goal of this video series is to help us make the shift to thinking developmentally. Over 4 videos, we'll do 3 things. First, we'll remind ourselves about what we already know about development. We know this, it's just the time to sit down and think about it. Second, we'll look at how people adapt to these changes, the work they need to do. And finally, we'll answer the so what question. These are great ideas. What do we do with it? So we'll explore how to apply this developmental focus to our work as we help young people to thrive. Throughout the videos, I'd like you to be involved in 2 ways, besides actually watching and thinking about the video. The first is quick writes. Occasionally, I'm going to ask you to stop and take 15 to 20 seconds to quickly jot down ideas, what's on your mind, your reactions, things like that. At this point, stop the video and write away. You'll need a scrap of paper and a pen, or a phone, a pad, or a computer. Take a minute to grab whatever's best for you so you're ready. The second way I'd like you to be involved is I'm going to send you offline on occasion to look at a YouTube video, a website, or listen to part of a podcast. If you have the time, stop the video and go to the link I provide on the screen. If you don't, record the link, they're very short, and look into it later. As I mentioned, I'm going to start with the basics and remember what adolescence is all about. So to build on what you already know, let's stop with the first quick write. Take 20 seconds to write down as many things as you know about adolescence, this time of life. Anything you've learned, observed, and experienced. So take a minute, stop the video, write all your ideas down. Now take a look at your list. My guess is you have a lot on there. You know a lot about development. Let's put all these ideas together then. The other thing as you look at that list is my guess is it contains the word somewhere, change. Because that's what this is all about. It's all about change. Bodies change, sense of self changes, relationships change. And it's a messy and complicated change. It happens in all parts of young people's lives. Nothing is left untouched. And they're out of sync. These changes are not synchronized or organized in a way that really make it easy for young people. And they're not synchronized with each other, so they're off in different places, even they're all going through the same developmental process at the same time. And to make it more complicated, it's influenced by where they've come from in their life, who they are, what they've experienced, and the resources that they have, and the world that's surrounding them at the time, either providing them with supports or not, as the case may be. So one way to make sense of all this mess and change is to think about development as a life backpack. When a baby's born, we give them this life backpack that stays with them throughout life. When they're a child, we fill it up with the good things they need for life, those foundational things they need to thrive. So development in childhood is really about building a strong foundation. In adolescence, in the years and young adult, in adolescence and young adulthood actually, in the years somewhere around the ages of 10 to 25, that backpack changes. At this point, the young person takes charge of their backpack. They take it off, take everything out, explore what's inside, try things out, figure out what it means, decide what's important to them and how to use all these things. They add to or refine things in their backpack, and in the end, they repack it with all the things they want in the order that makes sense to them. So development in adolescence from this perspective is really a time of exploring, figuring it out, and taking charge of their life. So reorganizing the backpack is really a young person's way of adapting to all this change. This reorganizing is done in 3 stages of which you're really familiar. That first stage is early adolescence. That's young people somewhere between the ages of 10 to 13, 10 to 14. The years are kind of variable. I think it's almost easier to think about where they are in school. So this would be that late elementary to middle school time. And think about that. That's huge. Think about all those changes between those 2 times of school life. So this is the stage when everything is new. All these changes, significant changes, start. Life up to this point has been developmentally stable. And now the changes take off like a roller coaster going full tilt. They don't have anything to compare to or draw from. Puberty hits, bodies change, they look and feel different. They plummet from the top to the bottom of the social ladder. And think about that transition from elementary to middle school. In elementary, many of our kids are top of the block. They've been around for a while. They know how it works. They're comfortable. They're kind of the folks in charge. And it's a well-guided and nurtured place for many of them. But in middle school, everything gets bigger. There's more of everything. There's more students, not just one class, but in many. There's more teachers, more rules and expectations, more choices, more opportunities and responsibilities, more. And there's a new and previously unknown pressure to perform and succeed. Finally, relationships change. They change with their parents and family, or caregivers, their peers, the other adults in their life. So if you've got a moment, stop the video and go take a minute to listen to the introduction in Act 1 of the podcast Middle School from This American Life. It actually does take about 11 minutes, so you might want to think about whether you want to do this now or later. But this is a really nice get in their shoes and walk around with young people to hear what middle school is like and some commentary on it. Now, keep in mind, this sounds to me like a very middle upper class group of young people and their experiences. So keep that in mind. But I think the experiences that these young people are going through are similar for all of our youth. It just plays out in ways that are very middle class, urban. All right, second stage, middle adolescence. This is at high school age, somewhere 14, 15 to 18. And it's a stage that many of us think of when we hear the word adolescent. Not surprisingly, this is the time of testing. Young people go deeper in all this change to see what they can do. They experiment, test and try things out. They seek out novel experiences because there's the time and opportunity to do it. They can see where they can go with all of this and how people react to them and how they react to themselves. Testing is very purposeful. The developmental changes of adolescence prime them to take these risks and try things out. And that helps them separate from the comfort and safety of their family and fosters development of independent survival skills. So testing is necessary, expected, and normal developmental process. It freaks us out. There are risks, no doubt, but it is normative. Young people need to be doing this. They are primed to do this. This is also a time of refinement. Young people have already experienced a lot of these changes, a lot of the first changes, and they've gotten some of that under their belt. Now they're going to go deeper in adapting and understanding and accepting these changes. The third stage then is obviously late adolescence and young adulthood. This is that post-high school time, somewhere 18 to 24 or 25. So this is a time when we think, well, hey, they've got it all ready. They've made it through high school, or hopefully. They're ready to move on in their life. They're going to become young adults here. But really, everything in their life kind of falls out from underneath young people. Up till this point, it's been pretty scripted. They're expected to be in school. They're expected to be cared for and living with adults in some way, shape, or form, having very predetermined things that they need to be doing and expectations about them. Now, all bets are off. Where they live can be almost anywhere. They could be at home, they could be away at school, they could be on the street, they could be in the military, they could be living with friends, they could be in and out of places, moving on and going forward. It can change frequently. What they do can also really vary. They might go to school, they might work, they might do both. Again, they might go into the military, they might do nothing at all. There might be no opportunities, or opportunities that are not socially proactive for them. And their relationships also are changing, because now they interact more with adults on a day-to-day basis at school, at work, where they live. They're not as age segregated as before. And how do they know when they've made it? When are they an adult? Do we give them a certificate of completion other than that high school diploma for those that get it? There are no real rites of passage. So not surprisingly, this is an age of feeling in between. There was a survey done of youth ages 18 to 25 years old a few years ago that asked the question, do you feel that you've reached adulthood? And more than half of them answered yes and no, based on criteria they considered to be most important for becoming an adult. Things like accepting responsibility for themselves, making independent decisions, and becoming financially independent. So late adolescents and young adults are caught up in this process of becoming, and it's reflected in their feeling of neither being an adolescent nor an adult. So a real fun, quick, and humorous YouTube video you might want to look at is called Thoughts of Growing Up by the Vlog Brothers. It's really an insight on becoming an adult. So I encourage you to take a few moments. It takes about 3.5 minutes to go watch that one. So in these 15 years or so of adolescence, there's a lot going on. And there's a lot brewing underneath the surface. As we work with young people, as we interact with them on a day-to-day basis, as we live with them for that matter, keep in mind, this is all bubbling and brewing underneath the surface. And they need to figure out how to manage it in some way. They have a job. Well, they have developmental tasks to accomplish. And we here at the State Adolescent Health Resource Center divide this up into what we think are 8 pretty simple to understand tasks. Now, different people organize these tasks in different ways. These really all interrelate and overlap with each other. We just think these are the easiest ways to think about. But listen for what makes sense to you. But these tasks deal with things like dealing with a new body, brain, and their sexuality, refining how they think, figuring out their identity, their spark and role in life, and learning to relate differently to peers and parents and caregivers and other adults in their lives. In the next 2 videos, we'll delve into these developmental tasks. We'll look at what changes, how young people adapt to these changes, and what we see that tells us that they're doing this adapting. So next steps, before we end, please take a minute to stop and write one last quick write. I'd like you to answer 2 questions, and keep these with you. What sticks with you from this video? What's your aha, or what resonates, or what's something you want to go share with somebody else? And how is this important to your work? What does this mean to you? So stop for a moment and do that. If you didn't have the time to look at the middle school podcast or listen to the Growing Up YouTube video, now would be another time to do it, or keep a note for yourself to do it a future time. I also encourage you to download the publication Teen Years Explained. This is a compilation and overview of all the research around adolescent development, which sounds deadly boring, but This is written in a way that is so user-friendly and so applied. It is just like the Bible of adolescent development. The nice thing, it's free to download. So go to the site, take a look, download it, and I think you'll be quite surprised and happy with the resources you have at hand. Of course, please come back and watch videos 2 and 3 when you're ready to move on and look at how adolescents are adapting to the changes of adolescence. As you finish this video, remember a few things about adolescents reorganizing their life backpack. The change they experience is profound. They work hard to manage it all, and they're influenced significantly by life experiences. Keep those ahas you just wrote down close by as a reminder about the importance of thinking developmentally every day, so you can better understand what young people need and how you can best support them. And finally, let me know what you think. Send me your ahas and insights. What did this video spark for you? Thanks for spending this time with me.